Islam Makhachev just said something that shook the Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier debate, and DC's reaction says everything about who really owns the wrestling mat. Islam Makhachev made it clear that if Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones ever faced each other in a straight wrestling match, Cormier would have the clear advantage. Speaking about the matchup, Islam pointed to DC's elite Olympic-level wrestling background. Years of high-level competition and technical mastery developed long before his MMA career. As a former teammate at American Kickboxing Academy, Islam has first-hand experience training alongside Cormier and understands exactly how dominant DC is on the mat. Cormier strongly embraced that endorsement, emphasizing that Islam isn't just another fighter giving a casual opinion. He's a reigning UFC champion and one of the most technically sound grapplers in the sport. For DC, Islam's prediction reinforces what he believes has been overlooked for years. While Jon Jones is an all-time great in MMA, a pure wrestling environment strips away striking and submissions, leaving Cormier in his strongest domain. Daniel Cormier didn't just agree with Islam Makhachev's take. He used it as proof that the debate shouldn't even exist. According to DC, people who think Jon Jones could beat him in a pure wrestling match are ignoring the opinion of someone who actually understands elite grappling at the highest level. Islam isn't a casual observer or a former fighter giving hot takes. He's a dominant UFC champion, a lifelong wrestler, and someone who trained daily with Cormier at American Kickboxing Academy. Cormier stressed that Islam has shared the mat with him, felt his pressure, balance, and control firsthand, and knows exactly how difficult he is to deal with in wrestling exchanges. That personal experience is why DC believes Islam's words carry far more weight than online debates or fantasy matchups. From Cormier's perspective, when a world-class grappler like Islam confidently picks him to win, it confirms what he's known his entire career, that wrestling has always been his strongest weapon. DC also pointed out that MMA success can sometimes blur people's understanding of pure disciplines. Jon Jones' dominance inside the octagon came from mixing striking, reach, timing, and fight IQ, not from out-wrestling Olympic-caliber opponents. Remove the strikes, remove the submissions, and remove the cage, and suddenly the matchup shifts heavily in Cormier's favor. That's why DC urged fans to listen carefully to Islam's prediction, seeing it as an expert assessment rather than hype or trash talk. If you want real UFC stories, fighter reactions, and updates you won't hear anywhere else, hit subscribe and stay locked with MMA Thread. Daniel Cormier made it clear that age has not separated him from the sport that built his foundation. At 46 years old, DC says he is still deeply involved in wrestling on a weekly basis, not just coaching from the sidelines, but actively drilling, grappling, and going live with younger athletes. He emphasized that wrestling is not something you forget, especially when it has been ingrained into your daily life since childhood. Cormier explained that his role as a coach actually keeps him sharper in many ways. Teaching technique forces him to constantly break down movements, positioning, and timing, reinforcing habits that never fade. He still works takedowns, chain wrestling, and mat control multiple times a week, maintaining the physical awareness and muscle memory that defined his competitive prime. DC also pushed back against the idea that a retired MMA fighter automatically declines in wrestling ability. Unlike striking, which relies heavily on speed and reaction time, wrestling is built on balance, leverage, pressure, and technique, areas where experience can outweigh youth. That's why Cormier is so confident when he talks about a hypothetical wrestling match with Jon Jones, even today. From DC's perspective, stepping onto a wrestling mat removes every advantage Jones had in their MMA fights. No reach, no elbows, no kicks, just control, positioning, and scoring. That's why Cormier confidently claimed that if Jones ever crossed that line, the result wouldn't be competitive, predicting a dominant 10-0 win based purely on wrestling fundamentals and experience. Looking back on his rematch with Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier openly admitted that the loss still bothers him. Not because he felt outmatched, but because he believes it came down to a mental mistake. DC recalled feeling physically strong and comfortable as the fight progressed, even after absorbing body kicks, and avoiding early head kick attempts. That growing confidence, however, slowly turned into overconfidence. Cormier explained that instead of staying locked in and disciplined, the mindset that had defined his entire career, he began talking, posturing, and engaging emotionally with Jones. That was never his usual approach. DC described his best performances as moments of complete tunnel vision, where nothing existed except the fight and the next move. Against Jones, he drifted away from that formula. That lapse in focus proved costly. The moment DC relaxed mentally, Jones capitalized, landing the head kick that ended the fight. Cormier believes that if he had stayed true to himself, calm, disciplined, and task-focused, the outcome could have been very different. It's a rare admission from an all-time great, but one that highlights how even the smallest mental errors can change the course of a legendary rivalry. For Cormier, that regret isn't about rewriting history. It's about understanding how mindset can be just as decisive as skill. And it's exactly why he remains so confident in a pure wrestling matchup, where discipline, repetition, and fundamentals matter more than emotion or ego. Comment who wins a pure wrestling match, Daniel Cormier or Jon Jones, and subscribe to MMA Thread for daily UFC updates.